She woke up early every morning before the sun even touched the city's skyline. Her tiny apartment smelled faintly of the leftover aroma of last night's dinner, and the faint buzz of the street outside mixed with the distant sound of children getting ready for school. She quietly slipped into the kitchen, brewed a cup of tea, and took a slow sip, letting the warmth seep through her tired body. Life had never been easy for her, but she had always believed that love and hard work could make everything right. And for a while it had. Her husband had seemed kind, attentive, and loving when they first met. He had a charm that made people listen when he spoke, a confidence that drew her in, and a smile that made her heart skip a beat. They had fallen in love in a way that felt inevitable, like their paths were always meant to cross. She remembered those early days clearly, the laughter they shared, the quiet walks in the park, and the countless nights spent talking until they fell asleep with their hands intertwined. It all felt perfect, a life she had dreamed of. After they married, she gave her all to make their home comfortable and warm. She cooked meals she knew he loved, made small surprises for him when he least expected it, and listened to his worries as if they were her own. She stopped thinking about her own dreams for a while because she thought supporting him and nurturing their life together was her purpose. She believed that trust and love were enough to keep them strong. But slowly, the cracks started to appear. It was subtle at first. He began coming home late more often than usual, claiming work had kept him. He was always tired, irritable, and distant, but she told herself it was temporary. She believed that love could weather anything, that patience and understanding could fix even the smallest distance that crept between them. She never suspected the truth that while she was working tirelessly to build a life together, he had begun building lies that would soon crush her world. She started noticing small things, missed calls he didn't explain, text messages he would quickly delete, and faint scents on his clothes that didn't belong to her. Each time she questioned him, he smiled and reassured her with words so sweet and convincing that she would immediately feel guilty for doubting him. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe the man she married would never hurt her. So, she ignored the growing sense of unease and continued living in a world she thought was secure. Her friends began to notice the changes too. She had always been cheerful and full of energy, but lately her smiles were forced and her laughter had a hollow sound. People would ask if she was okay, and she would respond with a tired but sincere, "Everything is fine." She wanted it to be true, even if deep down she felt the shadows of betrayal creeping into her life. One evening, he returned home later than usual. She had prepared his favorite meal and set the table just the way he liked. When he walked in, she greeted him with a warm smile, but he didn't respond with the same enthusiasm. Instead, he glanced past her as if she wasn't there, muttered a few words about work, and went to his study without even a glance at the dinner. Her heart sank, but she told herself not to worry. Perhaps he was tired, perhaps something stressful happened at work. She cleared the plates alone and went to her room, trying not to let the silence and coldness of the evening crush her spirit. As the weeks passed, the signs became harder to ignore. He would make excuses for leaving the house, dismiss her questions with impatience, and spend more time on his phone than talking to her. Her heart felt heavy with confusion and worry. She wanted to confront him, but fear held her back. The fear of being wrong, the fear of the truth, and the fear of losing what little stability they had left. She clung to the memory of the man she had married, hoping that somewhere beneath the lies he still existed. Then came the moment she never expected. One afternoon, she returned home early from work, hoping to surprise him with a small gesture of love, a cup of tea waiting on the table, and a note that read, "Thinking of you." But when she opened the door, the scene she walked into shattered her world. He wasn't alone. The person she had trusted with her life, the person she had believed would protect her and their life together, was with someone else. Her heart raced, and tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, to understand why, but the words got stuck in her throat, and she felt as if the air itself had turned heavy around her. That night, she sat alone in their living room. The room that had once been filled with laughter, now echoing only with the sound of her own sobs. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made, all the love she had poured into the marriage, and wondered why it wasn't enough. How could someone she trusted so completely betray her in the most intimate way possible? Her mind raced with confusion, disbelief, and heartbreak. The life she had envisioned for herself, the life of love, security, and companionships, seemed to crumble before her eyes. The following days were a blur of pain and humiliation. She discovered that the lies he had been telling were not limited to their private life. He had begun spreading false stories about her character, painting her as untrustworthy, unstable, and difficult to live with. Friends and acquaintances started treating her differently, whispering behind her back, questioning her integrity. The woman who had always been kind, patient, and loving now faced a social isolation that was almost unbearable. She tried to explain, tried to defend herself, but the lies had taken root. People were quick to believe the stories rather than the woman they had once known. She lost her home soon after. Legal battles, manipulations, and false claims made it impossible for her to hold on to the life she had built. Each day became a struggle for survival. She took odd jobs, worked long hours, and faced endless rejection. The world seemed cruel, and she questioned her own worth constantly. Yet even in the darkness, she held on to something fragile but vital: hope. She didn't know how, but somewhere deep inside, she believed that life had more in store for her, that her story was not over, even if it felt like the end. In her quiet moments, she reflected on her past and the choices that had led her to this point. She remembered the joy of their early days, the dreams she had once held, and the love that had once felt unbreakable. Those memories were bittersweet, but they also reminded her that she had the strength to survive. She had been through hardships before, and she had always found a way to keep moving forward. This time, she promised herself, she would find a way to rise again. Even if it meant starting from nothing. As the days turned into weeks, she learned to navigate her new reality. She became resourceful, finding small ways to support herself and keep her dignity intact. She refused to give in to bitterness, even though it would have been easy. Her heart was wounded, but she kept it open, knowing that not everyone in the world was capable of cruelty. Somewhere, she hoped, someone would see her true self. The woman who had endured pain yet refused to be broken, and that hope, fragile and delicate, was the beginning of the next chapter in her life, a chapter that she could not yet see, but that was waiting just beyond the horizon. She did not know how it would unfold, who would be part of it, or what challenges lay ahead, but she knew one thing with certainty: she would not let the lies and betrayal define her. Her story was far from over, and somewhere, somehow, life had a way of turning even the deepest pain into a chance for something better. The nights were still long, and the loneliness still heavy, but she walked forward each day with quiet determination. She held her head high, even when the world seemed to be against her. Each small act of survival, a meal cooked, a job completed, a kind word offered to someone else, became a testament to her resilience. And in that resilience, there was a spark, a sign that perhaps the universe had not abandoned her completely. Perhaps, just perhaps, something unexpected was waiting to change everything. She woke up that morning feeling the weight of the world pressing on her chest. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, everything felt like a storm she could not escape. She got out of bed slowly, each movement heavy with exhaustion and heartache. Her apartment, once her sanctuary, now seemed to echo with reminders of what she had lost. She moved mechanically through her morning routine, unable to shake the feeling that her life had been turned upside down overnight. In the following days, the reality of her situation became even clearer. The lies her husband had spread about her had started to take root in the minds of people she had once considered friends. Whispers followed her wherever she went, and she noticed the cold distance in the eyes of neighbors who had once greeted her warmly. Even some relatives who she thought would stand by her seemed unsure, hesitating when she tried to explain the truth. It was as if the world had turned against her, and the betrayal she experienced at home was now echoed by those she had trusted outside of it. She tried to talk to her husband, hoping that facing him with the truth might resolve something, anything. But each attempt was met with calm, calculated denial. He twisted her words, accused her of imagining things, and used the very trust she had given him as a weapon. He was skilled in his deceit, and she realized how carefully he had planned everything. The thought made her chest tighten. The man she had loved and trusted had spent months, perhaps years, orchestrating a life in which she would appear weak, unstable, and guilty. She began to isolate herself, withdrawing from everyone who had once been a part of her life. The pain of seeing familiar faces look at her with suspicion or pity was unbearable. She would spend hours alone thinking about what she could have done differently, replaying every conversation, every gesture, trying to find where she had gone wrong. But deep down, she knew she hadn't done anything to deserve this. She had loved, trusted, given her life to someone who chose to destroy it. As she struggled with the lies, she also faced the financial collapse that came with it. Her husband controlled the finances, and his manipulations ensured that she had nothing. The bills piled up, notices arrived in the mail, and each day became a fight just to maintain a roof over her head. She took odd jobs wherever she could find them, working long hours in small cafes, cleaning offices, running errands. It wasn't easy. She was tired in every sense, physically, emotionally, mentally, but she refused to give up. Giving up was not in her nature. Her body ached, her spirit felt frayed, and yet she carried on. She learned to move quietly, to avoid attracting attention, to survive without support. Every small victory, being able to pay rent, buy a meal, or even just keep her head above water, felt monumental. She began to understand the depth of her own strength, even in a world that seemed intent on breaking her. The experience changed her. She became more cautious, more aware, but also more determined. She realized that while people could betray her, they could never take away her resilience unless she allowed it. In the midst of all this chaos, there were moments of profound loneliness. She would sit in her apartment at night, staring at the walls, thinking about the life she had once known, memories of happier times, the laughter, the love. The shared dreams would rush back in waves, leaving her breathless and aching. She missed the warmth of companionship, the sense of security, the feeling that someone genuinely cared. And yet she learned to find comfort in small things, a warm cup of tea, a sunrise breaking over the city, a kind word from a stranger. These small moments became lifelines, reminders that the world was not entirely cruel. Her emotional journey was complicated by anger. At times, she felt an intense rage toward her husband, wanting to confront him, to make him understand the pain he had caused. But she quickly realized that anger alone would not fix anything. It would not undo the lies, restore her reputation, or bring back the life she had lost. Instead, she channeled that anger into determination. She decided to focus on what she could control: her actions, her choices, her efforts to rebuild her life as she navigated her new reality. She began to notice the subtle signs of opportunities. A chance encounter with someone who treated her with genuine kindness reminded her that not everyone was influenced by her husband's lies. A small success at a temporary job reminded her that she still had skills, intelligence, and value. These glimpses of hope, though faint, were powerful. They reminded her that her story was not yet over, that she still had the power to shape her future despite the deception that had been forced upon her. One day, while working a long shift in a small office, she met a man who noticed the care and dedication she brought to her work. He spoke to her with respect and kindness, treating her as an equal rather than someone to be pitied. She felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust. It was cautious, quiet, but it existed. She didn't know it yet, but this encounter would mark the beginning of a significant change in her life. For the first time in months, she felt that perhaps there was someone in the world who could see her for who she truly was. Meanwhile, the pressure from her past life continued. Her husband's attempts to control and manipulate did not cease, even as she struggled to survive. Legal threats, false accusations, and public humiliation became part of her daily reality. She learned to navigate these challenges carefully, understanding that rash actions could worsen her situation. Each decision required thought, patience, and strategy. She became meticulous, careful, and wise in ways she never had to be before. Life had forced her to grow, to develop a resilience that was both mental and emotional. Despite all of this, She never lost her compassion. She met many people during her daily struggles, some cruel, some kind, and she treated them all with dignity. She helped where she could, offered a smile where it was needed, and never allowed bitterness to consume her. This was not always easy. There were days when the pain of betrayal made her want to give up entirely, but she held on to the belief that living with integrity, even when the world was unjust, was a victory in itself. As the months passed, she slowly began to reclaim pieces of her life. She found small, steady work that allowed her to support herself, rented a modest apartment that she could call her own, and started to rebuild her sense of self. The journey was slow and fraught with obstacles, but each step forward was a testament to her courage and determination. She began to understand that while she could not undo the past, she could shape the future. The lies, the betrayal, and the humiliation had caused pain, but they had also revealed the depth of her strength. Her days became filled with quiet routines, work, rest, reflection, but there was an underlying sense of anticipation. She felt, almost instinctively, that life had more to offer her. Perhaps it was a lingering hope, perhaps it was intuition, but she sensed that her story was far from finished. The world had shown her its harshest side, but it had also shown her moments of kindness, opportunities, and the resilience within herself that she had never fully recognized. In these quiet moments of reflection, she made a promise to herself. She would not allow her husband's lies to define her. She would not allow the cruelty of others to extinguish the spark within her. She would rebuild her life, piece by piece, and reclaim the dignity and respect she had lost. It would not be easy. She knew the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. But for the first time in months, she felt a sense of determination that was unshakable. She also began to notice something else, an inner strength that had been hidden beneath years of love, trust, and sacrifice. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also revealed her capacity to endure, adapt, and rise above adversity. She began to see herself not just as a victim of circumstance, but as a survivor. A woman capable of navigating a world that had turned against her. And in this recognition, there was a sense of empowerment, a quiet fire that refused to be extinguished. Little did she know that her life was about to take an unexpected turn. The encounters she had, the opportunities she would come across, and the choices she would make would slowly lead her toward someone who could see the truth, someone who could change the course of her story. This person, a stranger in the grand scheme of her life, would become a catalyst for the next chapter filled with hope, justice, and the possibility of a life rebuilt. As she walked through the city streets, carrying her modest bag of belongings and the weight of her experiences, she felt both the pain of the past and the faint stirrings of a future that could be different. Each step was a testament to her resilience. Each breath a reminder that she was still alive, still capable, and still deserving of happiness. The lies had hurt her, the betrayal had broken her world, but they had not broken her spirit. She carried on quietly, steadily, knowing that her story was far from over, and that the next chapter awaited, ready to unfold in ways she could not yet imagine. Life continued to be difficult, but she had started to adjust to the new rhythm. She had learned to rise before dawn, to plan her day carefully, and to find strength in even the smallest victories. Every morning, she would step out into the bustling streets with a quiet determination, reminding herself that each day was a chance to rebuild, to reclaim a life that had been taken from her. The pain was still there, a constant shadow, but it no longer dictated her every action. Her jobs were simple and physically demanding. She worked long hours cleaning offices, assisting in small shops, and running errands for people who never knew her story. Each job left her exhausted, but she approached every task with dedication and care. She discovered that even in these small roles, she could find satisfaction. The work gave her structure, a purpose, and a reminder that she was capable of contributing something meaningful. Even when the world seemed determined to strip her of dignity, during these long days, she encountered many people. Some were kind, offering a smile or a word of encouragement. Others were indifferent, focused solely on their own lives. Occasionally, she met people who were cruel, quick to judge or dismiss her without knowing her past. These interactions were difficult, but she learned to navigate them with grace. She realized that her worth was not determined by the opinions of others, but by her own actions, her own integrity, and her ability to persevere despite adversity. One day, while carrying supplies for a small office, she noticed a man observing her quietly. He wasn't like the others she encountered daily. His eyes held a warmth and a curiosity that was hard to ignore. He smiled briefly before returning to his own work, but the moment stayed with her. It was a small reminder that not everyone in the world was cruel or indifferent. Even in her lowest moments, there were glimmers of hope, hints that kindness still existed. Her financial situation remained precarious. Bills accumulated faster than she could pay them, and she often went to bed hungry. Despite this, she refused to compromise her values. She would not steal, cheat, or deceive to survive. Each day was a struggle, but it was a struggle she met with honesty and resilience. She discovered an inner strength she had never fully recognized before, a determination to live with integrity no matter the cost. She also began to notice the subtle ways her past continued to affect her present. Her husband's lies had not been confined to their personal lives. They had seeped into the perceptions of others, making it harder for her to gain trust and respect. She faced suspicion and doubt wherever she went, and rebuilding her reputation felt like climbing an endless mountain. Yet she pressed on, believing that consistent honesty, hard work, patience would eventually reveal her true character. Her evenings were quiet and reflective. She would sit in her modest apartment, often staring at the walls, thinking about what had happened and imagining what the future could hold. She thought about the life she had once dreamed of, the home she had once shared, and the love she had poured into her marriage. The memories were painful, but they were also a reminder of her capacity to feel deeply, to love, and to believe in people. She realized that these qualities were not weaknesses. They were strengths that would guide her toward a brighter future as weeks turned into months. She began to develop a routine that balanced work, rest, and moments of quiet reflection. She learned to cook simple meals that nourished her body and soul, to find small joys in everyday life, and to appreciate the kindness of strangers. These moments of normalcy became precious, reminding her that life, even in its hardships, still offered opportunities for happiness and connection. It was during one of these ordinary days that her life began to shift in unexpected ways. While cleaning an office building for the day, she noticed the same man from before. This time he approached her, offering a simple greeting and a question about her well-being. His interest was genuine, devoid of judgment or suspicion. They spoke briefly, exchanging small talk about the building, the weather, and their daily routines. Though the conversation was short, it left her with a sense of warmth she had not felt in a long time. It was a reminder that human connection, even in its simplest form, could be healing. The man soon became a subtle presence in her daily life. He noticed the care and attention she put into her work, the quiet patience with which she handled challenges, and the unwavering dignity she maintained despite her circumstances. He did not pry into her past, nor did he offer empty sympathy. Instead, he acknowledged her effort and skill, treating her with respect and fairness. It was a small but powerful affirmation that not all people were quick to judge, and that her efforts were seen. Even if only by a few, this growing awareness of kindness and recognition rekindled a sense of confidence within her. She began to take greater pride in her work, to pay more attention to her appearance, and to present herself in ways that reflected her inner strength. She realized that while she could not change the past, she could shape how she moved through the present. Each day became an exercise in reclaiming her sense of self, rebuilding her identity, and discovering the value that had been overshadowed by betrayal. During this period, she also began to confront the emotional scars left by her husband's lies. The sense of betrayal had cut deep, leaving her wary of trust and hesitant to form new connections. She struggled with moments of doubt, questioning whether anyone could truly see her for who she was. But she slowly learned to differentiate between fear and caution, recognizing that not everyone had the capacity for deceit. She allowed herself small moments of hope, tentative steps toward believing that life could offer genuine kindness and understanding. She also took practical steps to rebuild her independence. She sought out new skills, explored opportunities for better employment, and connected with people who could provide guidance or support. Each action, no matter how small, reinforced the belief that she was capable of shaping her future. She discovered that resilience was not just about surviving hardships, but about actively creating opportunities for growth and improvement. Her social circle remained limited, but the relationships she did nurture were meaningful. She reconnected with a few trustworthy acquaintances, people who had witnessed her character and who offered encouragement and assistance without judgment. These connections provided emotional support, reminding her that she was not entirely alone in her struggle. She realized that trust, once earned, could be a powerful source of strength and motivation. As time passed, she noticed changes within herself. She became more self-aware, more confident, and more deliberate in her choices. The pain of betrayal had forced her to confront her vulnerabilities, but it had also revealed her capacity for endurance, empathy, and courage. She'd become a woman who could face adversity without losing her sense of dignity, a woman who could navigate challenges with patience and intelligence, and a woman who could find hope even in difficult circumstances. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, she returned to her apartment and sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the hardships she had endured, the lessons she had learned, and the strength she had discovered within herself. She realized that while her husband's betrayal had caused immense pain, it had also forced her to grow in ways she never could have imagined. She understood that life, in its unpredictability, could bring both suffering and opportunity, and that her response to these experiences would define her future. In the weeks that followed, she continued to navigate her life with resilience and determination. She worked diligently, treated others with kindness, and nurtured the small sparks of hope that had begun to appear. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that challenges and obstacles would continue to test her. But she also knew that she possessed the strength, intelligence, and courage to face whatever came her way. Unbeknownst to her, the man who had noticed her perseverance and integrity would soon play a more significant role in her life. The connection they had established, built on respect and recognition rather than pity, was laying the foundation for opportunities she could not yet foresee. This period of quiet struggle and subtle growth was preparing her for a chapter that promised not just survival, but the possibility of renewal, justice, and a life rebuilt on her own terms as she walked through the streets each day. Carrying the weight of her experiences and the lessons she had learned, she felt a sense of quiet determination. The world had shown her its harshest side, but it had also revealed her capacity for endurance, empathy, and courage. She had begun to understand that while the past could not be changed, the future was hers to shape. And with that understanding came a sense of hope, a hope that would guide her toward the next chapter of her life. A chapter filled with unexpected opportunities, genuine connections, and the chance to reclaim the dignity and happiness that had once been stolen from her. She had started to feel that life was settling into a new normal. The days were long and sometimes lonely, but she had found a rhythm that allowed her to survive and even find small moments of peace. It was during one of these ordinary days that the billionaire entered her life. She first noticed him in a crowded office lobby where she was working temporarily, carrying cleaning supplies and trying to avoid drawing attention. He was there on business, moving with purpose, yet his gaze lingered for a moment on her. There was something different about the way he looked. He did not judge or pity her. Instead, there was curiosity, recognition, and a quiet respect. She continued her work, noticing that he seemed to return frequently, sometimes passing by her without a word, other times observing the way she worked. He noticed her attention to detail, the care she took in her tasks, the quiet dignity with which she handled even the most tedious work. It was clear to him that she was not just surviving. She was persevering. The sight of someone maintaining integrity despite hardship caught his attention more than anything else. One afternoon, he approached her directly. He spoke politely, asking about her day, her work, and how she managed to stay organized and efficient under challenging circumstances. She was cautious at first, used to people judging her or offering pity, but there was something different about him. He did not look down on her, nor did he offer empty sympathy. Instead, he asked questions that showed genuine interest in her abilities, her perspective, and her experiences. It was a conversation that left her feeling unexpectedly valued. Over the following weeks, he continued to observe her from a distance, noticing the way she treated others, the patience she exhibited, and the determination she carried with her every day. She was unaware of the growing impression she had made on him. He had encountered many people in his life, but few had left a mark the way she had. There was a quiet strength about her, a resilience that could not be ignored, and an honesty that shone through even in difficult situations. The first real turning point came when he offered her a small opportunity, a chance to assist in organizing one of his projects. It was not a grand offer, but it was significant. It showed that he believed in her skills, her judgment, and her work ethic. She hesitated, wary of accepting anything that might bring expectations she could not meet. But the chance to prove herself in a new context ignited a spark of hope. She agreed, stepping into a world that was unfamiliar yet filled with possibilities. As she worked alongside him, began to see another side of life, one that had seemed inaccessible before. The work was challenging, requiring creativity, precision, and focus. She learned quickly, impressing him with her attention to detail and her ability to handle pressure calmly. He provided guidance, but never condescended. He respected her decisions and encouraged her to take initiative. The experience was both empowering and humbling, reminding her that competence and integrity could open doors that fear and doubt had kept closed. During this time, he also learned about her past, not from gossip or rumors, but from observing her character and hearing her story in her own words. He saw how she had been wronged, how lies and betrayal had upended her life, and how she had fought to survive despite overwhelming odds. He did not judge her for the mistakes of others, nor did he treat her story as a reason for pity. Instead, he recognized the courage it took to endure, the wisdom gained through hardship, and the strength of character that few people possessed. As they spent more time together, he began to take subtle steps to help her rebuild her life. He offered mentorship, guidance, and opportunities that allowed her to regain confidence and independence. He did not rush her, nor did he try to solve her problems with his wealth. Instead, he provided support in ways that empowered her, showing that assistance could be meaningful without being controlling. Through this approach, he helped her see that life could offer fairness and kindness. Even after deep betrayal, she, in turn, began to trust him in small ways. The cautious hope she had nurtured through her struggles began to grow into a quiet belief that not all people were capable of cruelty. She found herself opening up, sharing insights about her experiences, her thoughts on her work, and even her fears and dreams. Each interaction built a foundation of trust, a bridge between the pain of her past and the potential of her future. During this period, also began to uncover the truth about the lies her husband had spread. Through careful investigation and observation, he learned how deceit had been used to manipulate others, damage her reputation, and control her life. Instead of acting impulsively, he devised a strategy to reveal the truth in a way that was fair and undeniable. He understood that exposing the lies was not about revenge. It was about restoring justice and allowing her to reclaim the life that had been taken from her. She was initially unaware of the extent of his efforts. She focused on her work, on proving herself in the new environment, and on taking steps toward independence. But slowly, she began to notice changes, the subtle restoration of her reputation, the cautious acknowledgement from people who had doubted her, and the gradual opening of opportunities that had seemed impossible before. She felt a sense of gratitude. Though she did not yet fully comprehend the magnitude of the support she was receiving through this period of collaboration, mentorship, and careful guidance, she also began to regain her sense of self-worth. The confidence that had been eroded by betrayal was slowly returning. She learned to value her skills, her judgment, and her integrity. She realized that she was capable of more than she had imagined, and that her experiences, though painful, had prepared her for challenges she could now meet with strength and intelligence. The billionaire, for his part, continued to observe and support her without overstepping boundaries. He respected her autonomy, allowed her to make choices, and offered encouragement when needed. His approach was not about control or authority. It was about recognizing her potential and providing opportunities for growth. This partnership, built on mutual respect and understanding, became the turning point in her life, the point at which hope replaced despair and possibility replaced fear as the days turned into weeks. The transformation in her life became more evident. She was gaining recognition for her work, developing new skills, and beginning to rebuild her financial independence. Her interactions with colleagues, clients, and others reflected a growing confidence and dignity that had been obscured by years of hardship. She discovered that perseverance, honesty, and dedication could not only help her survive, but also open doors to new opportunities and relationships. She also began to understand that life could be fair, that not all experiences were defined by betrayal and deceit. The support, recognition, and guidance she received from the billionaire demonstrated that kindness and fairness could coexist with the challenges she had faced. It was a lesson she had long forgotten, a lesson that restored her faith in people and in the possibility of a life rebuilt on trust and respect. During this period, she encountered moments of reflection and emotional growth. She thought about her past, the pain she had endured, and the lessons she had learned. She understood that, while betrayal could wound deeply, it could also teach resilience, courage, and empathy. She began to view her experiences not as burdens, but as tools for understanding the world, navigating relationships, and making informed choices. Through the billionaire's support, she also began to see the possibility of a future that was not defined by her husband's lies or her past suffering. Opportunities that had once seemed out of reach were now attainable. She started to imagine a life where she could pursue her own dreams, make independent choices, and build relationships based on trust and respect. The vision of this future, though still tentative, fueled her determination to continue moving forward. By the end of this period, she had not only regained a sense of stability, but had also discovered a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her story was not defined by betrayal or loss, but by her ability to endure, adapt, and embrace new possibilities. The billionaire's presence had provided a catalyst for change, but it was her resilience, integrity, and determination that allowed her to seize the opportunities presented to her. The lessons she learned during this transformative time were profound. She understood the importance of trusting wisely, recognizing genuine support, and valuing her own strength and abilities. She discovered that while the past could not be changed, the future was hers to shape. And with this understanding came a sense of empowerment, a sense of hope, and a belief that she could reclaim her life on her own terms. Her journey through betrayal, hardship, and recovery had brought her to a point where she could envision a life of dignity, independence, and fulfillment. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she had the strength and resources to meet them. The experience with the billionaire had not only helped her rebuild her life, but it also taught her the value of recognition, mentorship, and trust in creating opportunities for growth and success. As she moved forward, she carried with her the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. She had endured betrayal and lies, faced hardship and humiliation, and yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The turning point in her life had arrived, not through magic or luck, but through the recognition of her true worth and the opportunities that came from it. And with that turning point, a new chapter began, one filled with hope, possibility, and the promise of a life rebuilt by the time she reached this point in her journey. Her life had begun to transform in ways she'd never imagined possible. The work she had done with the billionaire had provided not only financial stability, but also a renewed sense of confidence. She now carried herself with a quiet dignity that spoke of resilience and strength. Each day, she woke up with a sense of purpose, a feeling that she could finally start writing a chapter of her life that was defined by her own choices. not by the lies or betrayals of others, her reputation slowly began to restore itself. People who had once doubted her started to recognize her abilities and dedication. Colleagues, clients, and even strangers began to see her as a capable, trustworthy, and intelligent woman. It was a stark contrast to the whispers and suspicion that had clouded her life before. Each acknowledgement, each word of respect reinforced her belief in herself and in the possibility of a brighter future. She realized that while the past had been painful, it had also prepared her for the opportunities she now had. The billionaire continued to support her, but the relationship had evolved into one of genuine respect and collaboration. He provided guidance and mentorship, but never overstepped, allowing her to make decisions and grow independently. She learned to trust him not because she had to, but because he consistently showed integrity, fairness, and respect. The partnership had become a model of how support could be empowering rather than controlling, helping her regain confidence in herself and her judgment. As she navigated these new opportunities, she also addressed the remaining shadows of her past. The lies her husband had spread were eventually exposed, not through confrontation but through careful evidence and the respect she had earned from others. People began to see the truth, and the weight of false accusations gradually lifted. Her name was cleared, her reputation restored, and the power of lies diminished. She experienced a profound sense of relief and validation, knowing that the truth had prevailed, and that she had not been defined by the deceit of another. Her personal growth during this period was remarkable. She became more self-aware, understanding her own strengths, weaknesses, and values. She developed resilience, patience, and a deeper empathy for others who faced hardships. She also learned the importance of boundaries, recognizing that while kindness and trust were essential, protecting herself from manipulation and deceit was equally important. These lessons shaped her into a woman who could navigate the world with wisdom, grace, and confidence. Financial stability allowed her to start thinking about her future in more concrete terms. She began saving, planning, and exploring opportunities that aligned with her interests and skills. The small victories of her past, the temporary jobs, the daily perseverance had built a foundation that now supported more significant growth. She discovered that her experiences, though painful, had equipped her with unique insights and strengths that gave her an advantage in navigating new challenges and opportunities. The emotional healing she experienced was equally significant. She learned to process the pain of betrayal, allowing herself to feel anger, sadness, and grief without letting those emotions control her actions. Through reflection, support, and the positive influence of those who believed in her, she gradually found peace. The wounds of the past were not forgotten, but they no longer defined her. She had reclaimed her narrative, turning the story of betrayal into a story of resilience, growth, and empowerment. She also discovered the importance of building genuine connections. The relationship with the billionaire, based on respect, mentorship, and understanding, had shown her that trust and support could exist without manipulation or control. This experience encouraged her to seek relationships that were based on mutual respect, honesty, and shared values. She learned to recognize people who could contribute positively to her life, and to distance herself from those who brought negativity or deceit. With each passing day, she felt a growing sense of independence and self-reliance. She no longer relied solely on the support of others. She had the skills, judgment, and confidence to navigate her life on her own terms. She understood that true empowerment came from within, and that external support, while valuable, is most effective when combined with personal strength and determination. This realization marked a profound shift in her outlook, giving her the courage to embrace opportunities without fear. Her work and efforts did not go unnoticed. She gained recognition not only for her skills but also for her character. People admired her perseverance, integrity, and dedication. The respect she earned was not based on wealth, status, or connections, but on the qualities that had sustained her through the darkest periods of her life. She realized that her journey, though painful, shaped her into a woman who could inspire and lead others through example. The culmination of her journey brought a sense of fulfillment and contentment. She had faced betrayal, deception, and hardship, yet she emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable. The challenges that had once seemed insurmountable had become opportunities for growth and learning. She understood that life was not defined by the misdeeds of others, but by her responses, choices, and resilience. This understanding allowed her to embrace the future with confidence, optimism, and hope. She also found joy in helping others who faced similar struggles. Her experiences gave her insight and empathy, allowing her to provide guidance, encouragement, and support to those in need. She realized that her journey had not only been about personal survival, but also about developing the capacity to make a positive impact on others. Through mentorship, assistance, and simply sharing her story, she began to transform her past pain into a source of strength and inspiration. The final transformation was internal as much as external. She no longer carried the weight of the past as a burden, but as a testament to her resilience. She had rebuilt her life on her own terms, combining personal strength with the support of those who truly cared for her well-being. She understood that happiness and fulfillment were not guaranteed, but they were attainable through perseverance, integrity, and the courage to embrace opportunities. She had learned that life could be fair, that truth could prevail, and that personal dignity was never truly lost. Even in the face of betrayal, her relationship with the billionaire had evolved into a true partnership built on mutual respect, admiration, and trust. He had played a role in helping her rebuild, but she had become the architect of her own life. She had regained independence, confidence, and a sense of purpose. Together, they had created a dynamic where support and guidance complemented personal growth, resulting in opportunities that allowed her to thrive. The story of her life, once dominated by betrayal and lies, had become a story of triumph, resilience, and transformation. She had faced the darkest chapters with courage, endurance, and integrity, and had emerged with a renewed sense of self. She had proven that even when the world seems unjust, perseverance, honesty, and determination can restore dignity, create opportunities, and lead to fulfillment. As she looked ahead, she embraced the future with hope and optimism. She had learned that life was unpredictable, that challenges would arise, and that hardship was sometimes unavoidable. But she also knew that she possessed the strength, wisdom, and resilience to navigate whatever came her way. Her journey had transformed her, preparing her for a life where she could pursue her dreams, form meaningful relationships, and live with dignity, confidence, and joy. In the end, she realized that her story was not defined by the betrayal she had suffered, but by the courage, resilience, and integrity she had displayed in rebuilding her life. The lessons learned, the strength gained, and the opportunities embraced had created a life that was not only restored, but also enriched by the depth of her experiences. She had transformed adversity into empowerment, despair into hope, and loss into a foundation for a life of dignity, independence, and fulfillment.